Hey everyone, it's Sandy here with Bella Rose Quilts. Welcome back to week 4 of our Christmas Delight Mystery Quilt. This week we're going to learn to make quarter square triangles, also called hourglass, and we're going to make 2 of these ornaments. We're going to make the Ohio Star block, which is the top of your tree. You're going to make one that, looks like a star on top of a tree, whether it's gold, red, blue, or whatever color. And then you're going to make 3 Ohio Star background blocks that are going to go in the background with a few other blocks and then some solid squares of fabric. So let's get started. This is the block we're going to be making in week 4. It's called an hourglass. If you turn your 2 blocks horizontal where the blues are touching each other, it will look like the half square triangle block that we made in week 2. But in hourglass, you actually take 2 half square triangles and you put right sides together and you sew across the other way, which I'm going to demo for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 J's and 2 L's, and you are going to mark a line along. Oops, I don't want to use that pen. Thought I was so organized because I had everything here. And we're going to draw a line just like we did before, corner to corner. I usually draw it on my lightest one because then I can see it easier. If I've drawn the line on the dark one, it would be harder to see. Put right sides together, double check. When you turn it back, you can see which way they're going to go. So I'm just going to do the other one the same way so they kind of match. And then I'm going to pin the side. Now I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of this drawn line. So I've sewn 1/4 inch to the right and left of the line, and now I'm just going to trim it short, not short, but along the line in the center, right on the drawn line. That's where I'm going to trim it. Then I'm going to press my seam allowance towards the dark fabric, just like that, all of them. So I pressed all 4 seams towards the blue, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 of them and we're going to draw a line from corner to corner across the seam. And then we're going to take and put the blue on the blue, the white on the white. So, and you want to nest these seams. You can kind of push them together if you push down. And if you look here, here's your hourglass. This is what it's going to look like. And you want these to be nested so your centers on your hourglass come out precise. So what I do here is I'm going to pin, because I want to keep that center together. Same here. I'm going to nest these up against each other. And I line up the corners. I'm new at doing these YouTubes, so I'm learning, not to hold things too close to me because then you can't see it. And this one here. Okay, now I'm going to sew 1/4 inch seam on each side. So I've sewn 1/4 inch from the drawn line on both of these. And before you cut them apart, you want to check and make sure that your centers are lined up. Looks great. Now you're going to trim on the drawn line. Now how can my rotary cutter disappear from here to the sewing machine? It's beside me. Use this one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my seams. There's some people that will take a little snip, and I'll show you what they do. They'll take like a little snip right here, and you don't want to snip all the way to that, you don't want to cut the threads. And what this does is it allows one side to lay one way and one to lay the other, either way that you want to press them. And what some people do is they do this. We call it a twist. You put your finger on each side and then you just do this and it flattens. The hesitation of doing this is that people are fearful that this is going to come loose. I haven't had any come loose yet, but the reason for flattening them like this is because you have this huge lump here, especially when you have like 8 or 6 coming together in the center, and the long armor, or you, when you're quilting, it hits it and it makes like a bump and it can break a needle. So it's good to, or the third thing you can do is press your seams open, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and press them open because it gives me the flat seam so I don't have that bump. Sorry, that's my dog growling. She wants me to feed her or throw the ball or something. So I'm going to go press these open. I'll be right back. So here I am. They are all pressed open. And this is a good time if you haven't purchased any of the square rulers. You can buy them all in a set, or you can buy them individually as you need them. But the one you're going to need the most is this one for making the hourglass. And this is the Creative Grids 3.5-inch square ruler, CGR3. And the reason I like this one is because you have your 45-degree line, and this is the very center of the square. And you can line that center up right at your point. You can line up your 45-degree. I'm going to see. I'm going to zoom in. I'm not great at this yet. I did buy a remote control, so hopefully that will help me. Another thing I want to point out, that if there is this huge lump here, you would have a hard time holding this down. But because I did open my seams, it's laying nice and flat, and the little grippers on the Creative Grid rulers are able to grip it. So I'm going to trim 2 sides. I need my little fig tree ruler, and I could just flip the whole thing. So I'm going to line up this point because I know it's square. I'm going to line up this point and this point because I know it's square, and my center is right in the center perfectly. However, I definitely want to and there's one. And I'm going to do it again. Lining up the center, the 45-degree. She's not happy with me. I usually take her outside and throw the ball before I start doing any recording or live or anything, because this is what she does. Slipped a little bit. It's a little, even ironing it open, it's still a little bit wobbly. So, 2 of them. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew them together like this. Actually, you're going to do this. And trim up the last 2. Ooh. Helps to turn it all the way around. I did not. Oh, I guess I did have it turned all the way around. Okay, here we go. It's not very happy with me. We'll trim up this one. Hopefully I'm getting it where you can see me. Keep forgetting to check. Center is lined up, 45 degrees lined up. I just hold it in the center, rotate it, trim it again. Okay, so now I have all 4, and I'm going to flip them over, and you can, I'm trying to make sure you can see this if I hold in the right spot. So what I do is I line these up, and you're going to flip it back, and you can make sure the seams are lined up because you're going to sew here. Another thing you can do is I stick a pin here. I stick it back far enough that it's not going to split my seam, and then I'll stick another one up here. They have to be even when you do this, and then I'll just put my pin in, and then I'll go down this one. Luckily they nest because of the way they were pressed in the first place. I do that. And this one here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn it around and make sure they're lined up. Sorry, we'll have to turn on the music so you can't hear my dog growling. Make sure these are lined up, which they are, and pin it. Okay, I'm going to sew the seams. So here are my centers for my 2 ornament blocks, and sometimes you may want to make one that is 4 different fabrics like this one here. That if you do that, you would just use a blue and a green and a red and a just make your half square triangles with 4 different fabrics and just choose 2 you want to go together. Like I put a background with each one of these, and then this one here was another one I made, and then this one I put like this. The only thing I didn't like about this was I didn't like the blue here and the blue here, so that's not sewn together yet. Okay, so this is what your block's going to look like. You're going to sew your unit on the top to it. You're also going to have your top and your bottom and your 4 corners, just like we've been doing all along. And you're going to make 2 of these for your Christmas tree. So next we're going to be making the 3 Ohio stars that go back here and the one that goes on the top. I already made my topper one, and it looks like this, the top. And I made it out of golds. It's really cute. And then I just used a various bunch of colored, little lightly colored background fabrics. I also have a arrangement of fabrics I'm going to be using for the stars, because we have these Ohio stars, and then I believe we have 3 more. I'd have to look and see, but not 3 more, 2 more. 2 are the same and 1 is different. So let's get started on that. So for the Ohio star block, we're going to need, this is the center of my Ohio star, which is this one. That's G. And then these points are E, and you have 2 E's. And your F is this inside of your hourglass block. Sorry, it just left my brain. And then B is the 4 corners, and out here you have your A, which we have 1 A. So we're going to take, first, we're going to take our, I'll follow the directions, A and our E, here, and we're going to draw a line I always draw my line on the back of my lighter fabric. It's easier to see, corner to corner. And then I'm going to take my E, I'm going to put it together. I'm going to pin it because we're going to sew 1/4 inch each side of the line. There we go. And I'm also going to take my E and my F, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw a line, I'm going to pin them together, and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on each side. And from this we'll get 2 half square triangles from each one. Now I'm going to trim on the drawn line. So I have 2. 2 like this. 2 like this. I'm going to press my seams towards A. Not A, but E. So all of my seams are pressed towards my E, and I left one at the ironing board. So now what I'm going to do is I want to put together these 2 with those 2. So I'm going to get 2 hourglasses, just like we did earlier. Same thing, we want this E to be on the opposite sides. Okay, so we're going to draw our line across. The AE is the one I'm drawing my line across. I'm going to put them together. Again, I want them to nest right here in the center. Helps me to just put them down. My pins are getting dull. Nest these right up against each other. If you're following along, we would love to have you come out and post your blocks in our Facebook group, Quilting with Sandy. And now I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on each side. So now I want to check them and make sure the centers are matching, and they are. Got a little off here. That one is 2. I'm going to cut. I always check them before I cut. Then I'm going to press my seams open. So this block, you're going to trim it using the 2.5 inch ruler if you have it. And I lined it up on the 45. I have my center line circle marked, and I'm just going to trim it. That should come off when I trim this thing. I don't do well with this type of rotary cutter. It slips in my hands, or it's kind of fat. This is my friend's that she leaves at my house. So my centers, my 45-degree line, just turn it. Line it up again. You can use any ruler, but you just have to go and find that middle point of your ruler. So you'd want to find the 1 1/4 inch spot like on this ruler, and you could still do it. You would come down and find the 1 1/4, and this is on 2.5 because I just trimmed this size. This is 2 1/4, and trim it just like that. One 1/4, because that's half of 2.5. My 45-degree line. And we're gonna 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and the 45-degree line, and the 1 1/4. So there you go. So now we're going to lay out our block. The G goes in the center. You have your B's in your 4 corners. Take these away. And then you're going to have it so that your background fabric, the same fabric as your corners, is going to be facing out, away from the center. And this, everyone, is your Ohio Star block. Isn't that cute? Looks just like the gold one that I showed you earlier. After we sew this together, then we're going to sew the sashing on. So you can sew across the top, through the center, and across the bottom, or you can sew in rows, which is what I've always done, but it's really up to you. I love this Christmas stitch fabric. It just works perfectly for this background. I pin them together. Some of the advanced quilters probably don't have to pin because they have been quilting forever. And these are very little pieces, 2.5-inch pieces. But I'm teaching you to do it the most accurate way. The way I would do it. I go ahead at this point and I'll pin on the other side of it so that they stay together. And that pin was dull. That is UPS or FedEx. I put in a bells so that we can tell when they come and we can catch them and make sure they take our packages. If you're using a white on white like I am, this is white on white candy canes, make sure that you have the right sides facing together when you pin it. So now I'm going to go sew these together. So here's my pieces sewn together, and I pressed everything towards the solid block because there's a lot going on here and nothing going on here, and I ironed these towards the center. And now I am going to nest these together. And I'm going to sew them. So here is my block. And next you're going to sew a C on the top and bottom, and then you're going to sew, and you're going to press your seams towards the C, the sashing, and then I have less sashing. I like how this does this. So, now isn't that just the cutest how I fussy cut that? I showed you in one of the earlier videos how I go about doing it. And then the last thing I do is I just trim up my sides to get rid of any threads. There we go. These take up a little bit. But now we have 2 stars. This is the topper. This is one of your background stars. So we're going to need 2 more of these. Okay, so here are my 4 blocks. This is the tree topper, and these are going to be in the background. So I used the Christmas stitch tans back in here. I think they're going to blend really well in the background. And I'm just going to scrap up my background, more of the lighter colors, you know, like these. I'm not going to use any of the solids. I did use this blue here, but I think it was enough to not really stand out too much. And I brought in this blue and a little bit of blue in the Joyful Joyful line. This is Joyful Joyful. And then this is your Christmas stitched. And this is Joyful Joyful and Christmas stitched. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's brand new. We're new at this. And come and join our Quilting with Sandy group. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook. And thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you next week for week 5. We're halfway done.